Yeah, before beginning the session, I just wanted to check with Renuka, Ritesh, and Ipshita if you are comfortable with us recording the session.
No problem.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
okay.
all right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's totally fine.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. So, good evening, everyone. My name is Jibby James, and I work as Senior Manager Admissions at the Indian School of Business. As informed earlier, the moderator, who is current student at ISB right now, she was unable to join in because of last moment illness. So I'm replacing her as the moderator for today's session. As you all know, today's session is on careers in finance, and I'll just quickly take you through the agenda. Initially, I'll be introducing the distinguished panelists, and they then will be introducing themselves, talking about their pre-ISB experience, ISB experience, and post-ISB experience. After which, we'll begin with the roundtable discussion. Uh, we have already received questions from the audience at the time of registration, so I'll be asking those questions one by one to our panelists. And I will also be taking in a few questions from the chat section in between whenever it's possible. So, having said that, let me take this time to welcome our distinguished panelists for the day. Ms. Renuka Ramni, who's from the PGP class of 2010, and she's currently working as Deputy Vice President at the Axis Bank Limited. Mr. Ritesh Mangla, who's from the PGP class of 2012, working as the Indian Credit Lead for Corporate Client Banking and Specialized Industries at JB Morgan Chase Bank. Uh, Ms. Ipshita Rajkova from PGP class of 2014, who's currently working as the Deputy Vice President at Axis Bank Limited. Thanks a lot, Renuka, Ritesh, and Ipshita, for joining us this evening. And I'm quite sure, as we all can also see the number of attendees who are in this session. So everyone is quite eager to know more about you, about your pre-ISB, ISB, and ISB journey, and obviously to know more about what they can look forward to as a career opportunity in finance. So before diving into the roundtable discussion, let me invite you, Renuka, to talk about yourself a bit, and I'll follow it up with Ritesh and Ipshita.
Sure. Thank you, Juby. It's a pleasure connecting with prospective students over here, and thank you for inviting me on the panel. So I have over 15 years of experience. I wouldn't say all of it has been in the financial services, but right now I'm working with a bank, and I work in the analytics division of the bank. So I'm not into a core finance functionality, but I'm in the BFSI domain as an analytics professional. And pre-ISB, I wouldn't call myself that I was in the financial services sector. I had, prior to ISB, I had about 5 years of experience in the technology sector. And that was, it was in and around finance. And that's where my interest of getting into finance started. So then the natural progression was to do an MBA. And post 5 years of experience, and I had a bit of project manager experience as well as implementation experience, I joined ISB in 2010. And post that, I joined an MNC consulting firm. So that was my first pure play foray into financial services from the technology consulting angle and from the analytics angle. And analytics back then, about 10 years back, was in a very nascent stage. So that's from where I started. I took a brief departure to do have an entrepreneurial stint in a food startup that wrapped up, and then I'm back into banking financial services. So that's how my career journey has spanned. I'm happy to take any more questions that are around that. Yeah, over to you, Ipshita.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Ipshita, and I'm from the class of 2014. I joined ISB. Prior to ISB, actually, I was also in analytics domain. I worked with City India in the risk analytics and marketing analytics division. And then I think I felt that, I wanted to move over to a business function. And I felt that I needed to understand how companies work, because analytics was very, data intensive, and sometimes we don't get the larger picture. So that was my motivation to sort of go to ISB. Um, After the ISB, I've been in again banking. I joined Citi, and then I worked there for about 4 years in the product management division in cards. And then I continued into Axis, where I managed the affluent and premium cards segment for Axis Bank. It's been 4 years with Axis. Yeah, I think it's been a great journey so far. And we'll talk a lot more about what ISB gave us post ISB and how was my experience prior to ISB. Thank you.
Thank you, Renuka, and thank you, Ipshita. Uh, and thank you, Jibi. It's always pleasure to be with ISP on any of the events. It's always interesting and always enriching experience for us also. So if I can introduce briefly myself, I completed my ISP course in 2012, as GB explained earlier. I am a chartered accountant, and unlike Renuka and Ipshita, I have not had experience in other lines. I have been in finance out and out. In fact, I did my industrial training as part of the CA course with City. Started there, worked there till I joined ISB. I spent one fabulous year at ISB, then joined City back, and I was with City till just a year ago, around a year ago, and for last year or so, I have been with JP Morgan. So you can see it has been out and out bank, but I can tell you there are a lot of activities in the bank that I could be a part of. I started with consumer banking. I moved into commercial banking. I was working on the risk side initially in consumer banking, then moved to coverage side. ISB gave me a chance to switch gear and move to corporate banking side. While we would call it mid corporate at City, but largely those were large corporates for all practical purposes. There I joined in the risk division and then soon moved to coverage banking. So with all experience and the background that I could give me, I could take these chances and take these opportunities with me. For last 1 year or so, I moved to JP Morgan and I am now heading the credit for corporate client banking and specialized industry here for the Indian business. So this is about me. Happy to take any question you may have. And over to you, JB.
Thanks a lot, Renuka, Ipshita, and Ritesh. I'm quite sure the audience is quite pumped up and excited to know more about your life experiences and your industry experience as well. So, starting off on a lighter note, something related to your ISB experience. So, again, what I'll be doing is I'll be asking questions one by one to each of you, and the first question I ask to the person, the other two can add on top of that if they want to add. So I'll be going in a circular way. So first question, I'll start with you, Renuka. So
Sure.
what is the daily routine of a student in each term, both academic and non-academic, and which was your most memorable moment at ISB?
Okay. So the daily routine actually depends on the first half of the term depends upon what kind of classes you get, whether you're in the morning slot or you're in the afternoon slot, and that actually dictates your circadian rhythm through the 6 weeks that is there in every term. And I can see both the
Yes.
panelists nodding vigorously,
Yeah, I
because
agree.
that is a single biggest governing factor about what time you hit the bed and what time you wake up. So that gets sorted. ISB gives you not much of choice. They play it around very well. So I don't think we have a choice over there. I think the first thing is the first 4 days, Monday to Thursdays classes, and it's really it was so classes fill up a good chunk of your day. Then there are some assignments. But what is, I think of, if memory serves me right, is your group assignments. It's when you start, interacting with each other, and it's not a solo affair at all. Never. I mean, I can hardly count a couple of assignments in my finger where we would have done anything independently. It is always a group, and there is always that group dynamics that gets built in. So a lot of your routine is governed by how many people are available, and just scheduling a lot of assignments around that. Of course, weekends are extended. We don't know when the weekend ends and when the week starts. So you're pretty much governed by what are the assignments and the tests that are coming in. That's term one. That's your first half of the first core terms that you have. The second is completely another ball game. So that is completely you're very self-driven at that point in time. You're kind of set in ISB, and what dictates you is really what you want to do. If you're already placed, then really life becomes very different. If you're not placed, then life takes a different course. So those are like some few governing factors of your routine at ISB. But your class timings I would put as top, which dictate your routine at ISB. So that's how it is. That was my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I mean, apart from the courses that we had to attend classes, and mind you, we did, right? These classes were very good. Unlike, I mean, I'm also a master's in economics from JNU, so I've attended a university outside of ISB, and I can tell you that it was a very different experience then, and what these classes meant in ISB. So, at least for me, it was important to be part of these classes. And given the duration of the terms, right, and the intensity of the course, at least at that time, we were told that we would cover at least 80% of what a regular 2-year MBA would do, right? And that means that you do everything at a very, very fast pace. So if you're not missing attending classes, it's unlikely that you will ever catch up. Other than that, yes, as Renuka said, peer group assignments were the center focus of everything we did. And those were interesting sessions to be part of because, in the core terms where all the grades mattered, right, everybody would show up on the peer group assignments, right? And towards the end, in the non-core terms, right, it was hard time bringing everybody in, getting, and there was obviously a fatigue also that would set in. So there would be a handful of people who would really, want to like make sure that their grades are not affected because of the poor performance of the group, and so they would really pull the extra mile on some of those, right? And some of them have been smart. They would know that for this person the grades really matter, so we can really free ride on him or her, right? So those were some of the dynamics. But interesting part of those dynamics of peer groups is you learn that that's how the real world is also going to be, right? You will have people for whom you will pull up or for because it'll matter, because your outcomes will also depend on how the team performs, right? So that's, I think, an enormous learning experience. Other than that, I think, as Renuka said, after you are placed, depending on which day you are placed, you sort of tend to take it easy. And I was from the Mohali campus, so the hills were very close by. So every now and then, we would hit on the longer weekends, we would hit the hills and go see the north of India, which was a lot of fun also. Yeah. So that's.
I needed 48 hours in a day to complete all the activities. Unfortunately, I had only 24. So many things always keep on going on campus. Not only classes, group activities, assignments, and so many, say, competitions, etc., and other activities, other speaker session, and of course, parties at OA. So, but there was never one dull day that I can remember at ISB. And I mean, while you can have a schedule, but there are so many activities that you need to really pick and choose at what you really want to be part of. Those are few are related to your course, few are related to assignments, and of course, activities that you would want to choose. You want to learn ballet? Yes, there are options. You want to learn say, foreign language? Yes, there are options. You want to be part of any project with many faculties. There are options. So I mean, it's absolutely up to each one of us what we wanted to choose. And I am very happy that ISB provided all those opportunities. And as JB asked, very one memorable moment. Oh, there have been many memorable moments. I can tell you, I have two photographs with me. One, me taking my a convocation photograph, taking the degree from Mr. Ragram Raj. At the same time, I have one photograph of my son receiving kind of degree from the dean that time, Mr. Ajit Ranganekar. He was also there with me on campus. So, there have been many such moments.
Awesome. Awesome to know about all this. And that is why, we and the audience here, would love to hear more about your experiences through the next set of questions we have. Uh, so the next question I have is again a bit finance related. Uh, Now, what does a professional day in the finance life look like? And how does it change with career progressions in the same role? Ritesh, why don't you go ahead and start?
Yeah, so first of all, I must add that, at times we have very narrow focus when we say finance. Finance is a very wide subject and field. So we can start from, say, corporate finance or, say, private equity or any kind of profile or banking profile where I am, and, other roles in banking. So a lot of variety. I can pick my profile, which is proper banking profile. As I said, I've been in risk. Right now, also I'm in risk. So if I can tell you my day, say 2 years, 3 years back, it used to be like I would have certain proposals at my table, and I would need to analyze whether to go ahead with those, not go ahead with those. Other things, you need to be part of certain discussions on proposals or risk committees, etc., etc. And there are many other activities which keep on going. Now, as we asked, how it moved, say, recently or in the later part of the career. Now, I feel as you move ahead, in addition to your regular activities related to your core profile, it also becomes man management to a great extent. So not only actual decisioning on, say, those proposals or certain other things, you're part of the policy discussions, you're part of, you know, other discussions like at times, for example, if RBI audit is going on, so we need to be part of it. Then there are team related discussions, so those also become very important part of one's day to day activities. So it evolves over a period of time, but one needs to see what area of finance that one is looking at, and basis which some changes may be there in the day to day life. But yes, if one likes finance, the day is always interesting. You have always new things coming your way.
Ipshita.
Okay, so I'm part of the retail banking and I've been part of cards. Okay, so how my day in looks like, and I can talk about my current day. We are post-COVID in a hybrid model of working where we work 2 days a week out of office and rest of the days from home. So it essentially means that about 9:30, depending on that day itself, right? Our calls start. There's a lot of work we do is based on obviously taking updates on how things are progressing. There are KRAs that are assigned to every team, and I manage a team of about 10 odd people. So basically making sure that all the projects are intact. And of course, there are strategic level meetings where we are discussing how the business is going, what are the financials, etc. So as Ritesh said that, yes, from it's going to depend. Like finance is very diverse, right? And a lot of you, when you think about finance, you think about corporate finance, but retail finance is a completely different ballgame altogether. It's somewhere a blend between FMCG for that matter. So, for example, I'm part of cards, and I can say the same for loans as well, right? It's about reaching out the individual customer and making sure he sells the card. It's pretty much like how much fleet on street is there, who can who can source these cards for you, etc. And then there is a risk management team who's going to evaluate each application, and obviously that's not done manually, that's done through systems. So a retail banking job requires you to understand how systems work. How do you manage portfolios? You don't look at individual person like Ritesh would do, right? So when you're looking at corporate side of things, you're evaluating every individual company and reading their balance sheets, etc. But in a retail framework, right, you're actually not looking at an individual, you're looking at a cohort of individuals behaving in a particular way, right? So all this is sort of coded into the systems, and a lot of what we do also from a risk management perspective depends on stuff that you are going to learn in your stats and microeconomics courses, right? So a lot of that comes in very handy when you sort of understand that. Other than risk management, then there is operations teams. Okay, again, as product manager, I'm also responsible for how my products function, are executed, what is the customer experience around it, etc. And pretty much we're looking at process designs, customer journey management, etc. So that's where we work with a lot of operational teams to ensure that, so we are usually the brain behind deciding how things should work, right? What's the experience that a customer should get, etc. So a lot of time actually goes into handling, understanding processes and how customers will behave. And sometimes, you may think that a process is designed well, but then you don't take into consideration the fact that the market behaves differently, or the segment behaves differently, right? So all that actually folds up into product management role. We don't just design products, but we also make sure that everything around how the product is executed is also well thought through. So yeah, so that's, I think, that's in a gist of what I do. It is pretty open-ended. My day is pretty open-ended. And requires me to work with many teams. And if there is one thing that I can say that ISP is going to teach you, maybe, and it will help you a lot, is the fact that you will learn to work in teams, right? Everything in ISP is designed around working in teams, right? Whether it is your class assignments or whether it is your extracurricular activities, it's about how do you work in teams, and that really comes in handy, at least in my course of work.
Yeah, Renuka, over to you.
Okay, so I work in the analytics division, and I can say that I've seen 10 years of financial services and analytics, and that has seen a massive transformation. In fact, the problem statements that we are dealing with right now is not the same as what we did 5 years back. We are in fact sitting on what we did 5 years back, and we are moving ahead. So you can actually see the entire analytics journey, or the way analytics has grown in the financial industry in a very, very beautiful manner. In fact, in my own career, if I look back and say what I was doing 5 years back, those are not the same problem statements that I'm doing right now. However, one thing remains constant. Your everyday routine is a very large, and since I've moved across consulting as well as working within a bank, it is very largely dependent on how your organization is structured and how teams and your functions are divided within the organization. So like Ipshita said, I think that goes without saying. I think in the modern world, I think in the last couple of years, I think there is a lot of interaction. There's a lot of cross-functional interaction. So my current role is that we get assigned one particular business division. So it could be something like what Ritesh Mangla is working on. It could be a corporate world, or it could be cards analytics. So within the analytics team, we have separated out teams which would purely look at specific functions, and it's to an extent it's matured in such a way that cards analytics is very different from people who do lending analytics, is very different from people who do channel analytics. So it's gotten to that level of maturity. A large part of my role is to identify problem statements with the business where data and data analytics can solve it, can bring in insights and and give direction to the to people like Ritesh and Ipshita's world. And second part of the world also hinges on how do we implement to scale. So that's the tech angle within the bank, and more so what has happened within the finance world. And like I said, finance is very vast. One portion of the finance world has become extremely technology and analytics savvy, so much so that it is starting to mirror a lot of high tech firms as well. So especially with the advent of the fintechs in the domains, so there is a lot of play, and some parts of the world are still working in sort of, I would say, a semi technology kind of a domain, simply because the data points are not that huge, the volumes are not that huge. So it really depends upon where you are positioned in the financial services industry, and your day-to-day experience is. I think it's common for a lot of people. There are a lot of coordination. There's a lot of stakeholder management. There's a lot of cross-functional interaction, brainstorming, and implementation that goes on through the day. So, right now, again, I'm working in a hybrid model, just like Ipshita. So 2 days a week in office, and the rest are managed through Teams or work calls over the phone. So that's how it works.
Awesome. Thank you for the awesome insights, everyone. Now, next question, we'll start with you, Ipshita. It's a bit profile related. Uh, how difficult will it be for someone with no finance background in the past to crack a good opportunity in finance post ISB? And what are the most in-demand skills required for finance?
Okay, Jimmy, just before I answer that question, I just need to understand the profile of the audience here. So do we have all ISP students, or from the question, I can see that there are aspirants as well?
Yes, so we have all PGP aspirants, no current student in this current session.
Okay. All right. To start answering this question, I'd like to structure it in a way whether your past experience or no experience matters, right? Finance is a very technical subject, and it requires, and the answer to the question is not, simple, right? It does require some bit of past experience. Okay. Having said that, it's not that the banks do not hire people with no experience. In my team itself, I have hired people who've come from other backgrounds, right? I think to answer that question, it will depend on what what is your aptitude to doing things, right? Okay. If you're going to join a corporate finance sort of a role, right, then financial modeling, etc., will be important. And if you have learned it for the first time in ISB, right, 6 weeks will probably not be enough, right? You have to spend a lot more time to, understand these concepts. And if I remember my finance courses in ISP, and I was from a analytics background, so I never did core finance, like financial modeling, etc., prior to ISP. And those are skills that I picked up at ISP, right? I personally felt that while these concepts were taught to me, we were basically, we had to spend a lot more time ourselves as well, investing in them, right? Just because you took a course doesn't mean that, doesn't mean that you have learned everything about finance, right? There is a lot more to that, which you will have to continue learning beyond finance. So it's about practice, okay? And which you will be able to demonstrate at your interview stage, okay? And the more you can put in, beyond the work, the classroom at ISB. And sometimes I can talk about the, some extracurriculars around finance, like iAlpha, right? Where you have some hands-on experience about managing portfolio management, etc. These are things that you can mention in your CV, and you can land yourself a finance job, okay? Now, this is for somebody who has not had prior experience in finance, okay? However, has had some experience. Now, a lot of expectation come as in terms of the fact that, I have experience, so I should be considered at a certain grade and role, right? Because I have past experience. So now there is a question on relevant experience, right? If you have absolutely no relevant experience, right, of course, you're going to be starting almost afresh, right? ISB is only going to give you an entry into a management program of the bank. Like, for example, in Access, ISB students come in through a special program. Okay, so you get an entry and you probably join at a certain grade higher than maybe another B school student would, right? But then beyond that, it is up to you to work it up, right? Because then you are going to be compared with people who have finance experience prior to that, and it's your learning curve that will matter in how quickly you rise up. Okay, so I think that should answer the question. If you guys want to add.
Yeah, Renuka.
Yeah. So really, without any finance experience, there is nothing. I think one thing what even Ipshita said was there's nothing cast in stone, and ISB is the first place to demolish that construct. That if you have this, you have to do this. Life doesn't work like that, and ISB is a true mirror of that, saying that that's the opportunities are given. So ISB as an institute is never going to stop you from applying for a job that comes on campus. It is never. I mean, it is up to the company. Now, I would give you a couple of examples where it can happen and it cannot happen. For example, there are investment banks who come in and are looking for analysts for about two or 3 years of experience, and this I've seen it happen. And I've seen many people with zero finance prior finance skills make a cut to the job simply because they've demonstrated the aptitude, and whatever skills that they picked up during ISB is enough for that 2-year profile. But there were also roles that came with looked for specific VC and IB experience, and wanted people with prior IB experience plus MBA, and wanted to pick up students. There, would you stand a chance without a finance experience? I doubt. So it really depends upon what the company is looking for, whether they, and more so adding to what Ipshita said, banks are now becoming almost there is a lot of retailization, and there is a lot of tech that is entering into banks as well as financial services, right? So those angles come in, and they start changing the mix accordingly. So what was the job profile 7 or 8 years back is not going to be the job profile right now. You're going to have those changed job profiles. There, it's absolutely, if you are able to demonstrate a specific skill set that the company is looking for, either by prior experience, or through project experience, or by sheer the power of your resume and what you've done in ISB, you should be able to convince the recruiter that you are the right fit. So really, there is no one answer to this question. I have seen both cases happening, with my friends and colleagues, and so that I would leave it at that.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I mean, this is bang on that. Lot depends upon what is the requirement of the role. So we have leadership roles coming on the campus from companies, for example, Citi, or say Novartis, or other companies. So I know for a role in Novartis, which was a leadership role, leading up to CFO. There were 2 roles when I was there on campus. One was filled in by a person who did not have prior finance background, and another was filled up by a chartered accountant. So of course that person had relevant, or I would say, finance background. Maybe not exactly relevant. So absolutely depends upon what the role is, what the requirements are. Like, for example, this role that I'm talking about at Citi, this is known as EMA, Experienced Management Associates. So they take from diverse background, not necessarily one has to be from the finance background. So they make person do couple of rotation in the bank for, I think, 2 or 3 years, introduced to different units, and then place one depending upon one's aptitude, knowledge, and experience. So it is absolutely on the roll. Sorry, Ipshita, you're saying something.
Yeah, so actually, from ISB, I did join the MA program. Right, and it actually also depends on the interviewer, right? Who's interviewing you, right? Some people actually are willing to try people from non-finance backgrounds, and some people are willing to try it. Like in my batch, the three people who got through, right, the MA program, all of us had some understanding of banking. We came from banking domain. It wasn't completely, fresh role. But having said that, because that makes it that much easier, right, for
Yes.
an interviewer to know that your aptitude for that, for that role. Having said that, I have personally hired people from campus who have not had any financial roles, okay, financial background, because and then when I'm doing that, I'm actually one of the things that I really look for in people is the problem solving skills. And when I say problem solving skills, I don't mean MBA case studies. Let me also make that. It's about one, the hunger to learn a lot more, and second is the ability to solve problems on your own, right? Because in the real world, right, you may get some training. Some companies don't even have robust training mechanisms. Like City, for that matter, has very good training, very good training methods, but I don't think I can say the same about Access right now. Okay. So again, so a lot of it will depend on how well you can learn, and learn through your job. And the rotational leadership program is something at least the EMA program that City used to run, right? It only gives you a brief exposure to find out what is it that you are interested in, right? And where is your aptitude lying, right? It just gives you an opportunity to learn that. So yeah, that's more or less, I think, the answer to the question.
I must add one point here that expectations have to be realistic also.
Yeah.
That, for example, if I come with a 10-year manufacturing experience, I
Mhm.
want to go into finance, that's very, very difficult. I must say almost impossible. There may be role, as Renika was saying, in case say some private equity company is looking at a very, very specific domain knowledge. They may offer, but those are very far and few, not regular roles on the campus. So one must evaluate oneself, one's experience, and then take a call.
And it, as you said, it also depends on the role. So in
Hmm.
our batch, there was one person who was an urban planner, okay, and she got a syndication role, okay,
Hmm.
urban planner to syndication role in finance, right? But again, the skill set that the bank was looking at is her ability, her interpersonal skills, which was important for a syndication role. She would never have to make, at least initially, not make any financial models, right? But because that her interpersonal skills stood out so much, right, that she landed herself a syndication role, and then she's being groomed to be a professional over the years. Now, obviously, she understands everything. So some of these skill sets also, like the role will want a particular skill set, and of course, you may then crack that role as well.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So, just following up on what the three of you just mentioned in terms of, the roles, the requirements, and the skill set, I just wanted to follow it up with a question related to what will ISB, provide in terms of skill sets or opportunities to these candidates, wherein, they can at least, feel confident enough to say that, okay, even though I did not have any finance background, or maybe I had a little finance background, but yeah, I think I am equipped quite well enough to, to move ahead in my career wherever, maybe if it's in finance or wherever, but yeah, I feel that I'm equipped well enough. So Renuka, yeah, you can go ahead and answer this question.
So for a person with specifically with little or no financial background, a lot of people tend to downplay the role of what ACADS does. I think I would put that as topmost. The course content, the way it is designed within ISB, I think power packs a lot into it. And if you're actually, even 70 to 75%, thorough with your course material, that itself leaps your confidence to a large extent to say that, I did not have the skill prior to me being, exposed to this program. And now I have these relevant skills for you to, for me to at least understand the basics of the problems. The complexities and all can come in later. So the first thing I would say is all of the finance courses, whether they are part of the core terms and whether they are part of the elective terms, I think they add a lot of value. The second I would place is the interaction with faculty. The faculty interaction, and I cannot stress, and Ipshita mentioned this in one of her earlier points, that the faculty that comes into ISB is top notch. And I can say that again, the faculty that comes into ISB is top notch. So you get, and everybody is an equal, right? I mean, in a classroom mode, everybody is equal. You get an opportunity to talk and interact with all of your finance professionals, your peer learning, because you will have people who are already experienced within the industry. That's something that you will have. They'll all be provided. Nothing will come to your door knocking. It's all there for the taking. If you have the aptitude, you have the hunger to go and latch on to these opportunities. These three, I mean, this is available to everybody who enters within the ISB campus. And if you can maximize on these aspects, I would really feel that your skill levels will definitely be, at least mine did, moved up, a couple of notches. Of course, then to add out on all of these things, all of the extra, exposure that ISB gives you in terms of either case studies or symposiums or, general talks, or to be part of, to get access to a lot of high quality discussions and debates. They just add everything to the entire bouquet of skill sets that you have. So, truly, I would say that the bedrock is your acads, and then it builds from there, with whatever you have. So,
Yeah, Ritesh.
No, absolutely. I mean, Rinka covered it all, I must say. So there are a lot of options available on campus. But yes, one needs to choose and pick what one wants actually. For example, while I came from banking background, before ISB, I had almost 8.5, 9 years of experience in bank. I wanted to go back to the bank, but he has different roles. And on campus, I formed group with four of my friends who were not from the banking background, but from the finance field background. And as I said, as I had 8 years of experience, 9 years of experience in the banking domain, I did not want to change it. And it had been, I mean, it would have been a unrealistic expectation also. So we formed this group, and for almost 6 months of the, say, later half of the year, we used to meet and discuss one topic every evening without fail. So 80-90% of the days we did discuss. And the purpose was that, one could learn from this discussion. One would prepare, present to the group, different nuances of different industries or any specific event. Or plus, I did not work on modeling before. So I worked on that. I took elective of that and had to put in little extra effort to gain that particular skill. So lot depends what you exactly want. Options are available at campus through faculties, through courses, through peer learning, and through assignments. So absolutely depends upon one what one wants to choose actually.
Yeah, Ipshita, over to you.
Yeah. So I think between Ritesh and Renuka, I think they've covered it all. Academics is the first, I mean, in my opinion, also the first place where you will learn the core skill set. And then ISB gives you a lot of, areas where you can exercise and demonstrate that your interest in that subject, right? And I spoke about, iAlpha, right? It's like a live trading, right?
Yes.
And imagine yourself sitting in front of the interviewer, okay, and you have to convince him or her that why you want to do a finance role, right? You need talking points. You are the person who's going to steer the discussion, right? Because when interviewers come to campus, they don't come with it's very different from a lateral interview where you're questioning somebody about the job he or she did in their previous role, right? But in here, it is about if there is no previous experience, right? You have to guide that conversation to the experience that you've gained at ISB. Now, whether that is in terms of coursework, you can begin with, I had the best grades in finance, right? Or it could be that I was, I managed a fund of this much and I grew it, and these are the key learnings from my course that I have implemented in my. It shows interest. It shows the hunger to learn, right? And your entire conversation can get stirred around what you did in ISB, right? And there may be no reference to whatever you did in the past, right? So ISB gives you all that platform, right? And so as Ritesh said, it's about one, of course, academics. Two is the choices you make while you're at ISB to make sure you can strengthen your candidature towards that role.
Yeah. So just adding on top of that, you have, the professional clubs, the finance
Yeah.
clubs, and all those clubs
Yeah.
which you can join in. So,
Yes.
if you haven't known anything about anything, let's say, you'll have some club who will explain about that, who will be there,
Yes.
to
Yeah.
give you exposure to make mistakes. And apart from that, you'll have, they'll have the opportunity for ELPs as well, the experiential learning
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah. Yes.
If get all those exposures. Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll now just move to an admissions or applications related question, because I'm just picking one question each from each bucket so that we don't miss out on the questions which have already been posted by the audience. So starting with you, Ritesh, how was the application and admissions journey to ISB, and who did you get in touch with, for guidance?
So yes, it was not as easy a journey, I would say, mainly because most of us actually were working, and I was in Bombay. Being in Bombay, you have travel also. It was not as easy to take time out. Frankly, it did take me some time. But Saturdays, Sundays were the best bet to prepare for it. In terms of help, whose help I took, actually, it was my friends and family only, not much. Yes, there was a senior alum in city who was there. uh, I took his help in terms of direction on what I should be bringing out in the essays. Say, if I can talk about the initial steps of the application. So, yes, he did help. I took help from a couple of other colleagues, and my wife helped a lot in terms of reviewing my essays and sharing her feedback that it should be how it should be. And in terms of interviews, again, there were a couple of mock interviews with friends, and again, that city alum did help me in terms of mock interview. I mean, that was it. But I can tell you, once you are through and you are at the interview step of interview is fairly straightforward. I mean, it's nobody puts you under stress, and they just focus on what you do, what you have done actually. So that was uh, that was about my journey on the application and interview process.
Ipshita.
Okay. My experience, the first thing I want to tell every aspirant here is that ISB does not take candidates only based on best GMAT scores. Okay, everybody needs to know that. Okay, while if you get a very good score, it only checks one box in a grid where you're evaluating, where you are being evaluated. Okay, what is important is the other elements in the grid, right? Where it's about how have you done teamwork. I mean, I don't know what are these criteria, but my point is that there are other aspects which is beyond your academics that it goes into consideration in the ISB application process. Uh, in my case, of course, you also have to sort of think about, how is your candidature different from, somebody else's, right? Uh, And ISB also looks at having a very diverse class. And class, when I say diverse, it's not gender diversity that I'm talking about. I'm actually talking about people coming from different walks of life, right? And they focus a lot on having a good and a very good diverse class, because that adds to the discussions in the classroom, right? People coming in, people coming from different experiences, industries, etc., will perceive a subject very differently from people who've been in that industry for a very long time, right? So diversity in terms of your profile is very, very important, right? I just want to say that when I had applied to ISB, I came from a hardcore analytics background, and I'd done a lot of analytics. I already had masters, right? So my profile was very different from maybe a lot of other people's profile, right? So one, diversity is very important. Then it comes to, and how do you bring that out? Is you bring it down out on the essays. Your essays are very, very important. And in my case, in my essays, I made sure that they were reviewed by an ISP alum, who knew what is it that ISP looks at, and helped me bring. And these were not just reviews, right? He or she had conversations with me to understand my profile and what are the aspects of my profile that I need to bring out in my essays. So those were fun. Second, I got it reviewed by a non-ISB alum. Because it sort of gives you a little bit of a flavor on what are non-ISBNs thinking, so that your profile is very rounded, right? So I think from both these angles, it worked. There is, at least at my time, I don't know if it's still there, but there was a question about how do you see yourself, say, 10 years from now, right? I think some of these questions are not, there is no right answer. It is about how much you think about what you've done and the narrative of your career, right? And how do you see yourself, and how does ISB fit into that narrative is important, right? So some of those things I think were critical in, at least I believe, worked for me.
Yeah, Renuka.
So the ISP application experience for me was a very big soul searching exercise, and it was a hard soul searching exercise as to why I wanted to do an MBA. And that was one of the most popular questions that were getting asked around in most B school application interviews. And I would reckon, even after 10 years, I think that is still the most important question that you have to answer yourself, and you have to build that narrative out and express that correctly as part of the essay. Once that narrative, the flow of that narrative fits, the rest is gets reviewed in terms of for grammar and for checks and for verbosity, and all of those things get done much faster. Reviews help, and reviews from non-family people help. And I learned, I had at least two of my friends and my senior colleague review my application to make sure that what I wanted to convey, what's there in my head, is coming out clearly in the essays. What I think, I mean, I'm just adding to whatever Ritesh and Ipshita put out. But the most important aspect of writing an application is that you have to own the application, because when you're faking it, believe me, there are extremely smart people on the other side who are reading applications and who can see through what is fake and what is not fake. So you own the application, make sure each and everything is really a product of a lot of thought and not just about putting together an answer. So own the application and present it. I think that takes care of a good chunk of how the flow of the application works. So these were a couple of things, and get it reviewed by, of course, family is always there to review it, but get it reviewed by people who have been through a B school or a B school like environment. That helps. That perspective really helps. So
if I can add 2 points here, one on what Shata said in terms of GMAT, yes. And as you know, I have been on the interview panel member is not shared the GMAT score. So that's as clear as this. I mean, when you're taking interview, you would not know what is the GMAT score been. Second, in terms of the essay, Renuka said every question or every discussion is on what you've written on the essays, right? It is your essay, so one has to own. And in case, I mean, in case it is not written by you, written by some professional help, then it comes out, and
It
then
comes up.
I feel it does
Absolutely.
not go well in the overall
Yeah.
interview discussion and in your favor.
Yeah, that is a very big negative. I mean, that if what you've written and what you are saying, there is a disconnect, people immediately
Yes.
figure it out, and they are seasoned people over there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for that insight which you all have given. Uh, and just to add on, maybe when you were all there in the school, the entry was only, the tests being considered were only was only GMAT. Now we consider GMAT as well as GRE. So
Right.
just to put it out, so
Yeah.
that the audience doesn't get confused.
Yeah.
So we accept both GMAT as well as GRE. So it's completely your choice which test you want to give and which scores you want to enter in the application. Okay. So moving on to a finance related, not a technical kind of a question, but with respect to the gender diversity in the finance industry. Um, what is the women percentage? Maybe you might not be knowing it exactly, but how is the women percentage or women participation in finance industry, and how is the industry evolving in terms of gender diversity? Ipshita,
We
I
have
will start with
60,
you.
we have 67 percentage here. Sorry,
I think
Ipshita.
banking is one of the only industries where I think this question should not be asked because
Correct.
it's pretty equal. Okay, I think women diversity in banking is good. Okay, I can't point to the right number, but if I look around in my team, there are enough and more women, and that's why Rutesh may be feeling that way. Uh, but yeah, so it's not gender diversity is definitely not an issue. Yeah, but there are other questions around gender diversity that needs to be answered. But in terms of number of women in banks, I think that's not an issue at all.
Renuka.
I would concur. I think and this is across the board. So even if you look at entry level positions, junior mid level positions, senior, mid senior, senior, and right up unto the top, I think the representation of women is about equal. Again, I don't have the exact figures, especially in retail banks. If you look at some specific functions, you may see it's still probably you could call it as an old boys club, but I think that's changing. But I wouldn't know that. But in the large banking sector, I think the gender diversity is quite is quite is as good as it can be. So
Ritesh.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have 50-50, absolutely 50-50 in one of my
Yeah.
teams. In one team, it is a little skewed, but overall, the diversity is there. Uh, and I can tell you there is a lot of push also in almost all organizations, at least in the banking sector, to maintain and increase this diversity. And not only in terms of hiring, but in the overall working space in all aspects of working life, I would say. So gender diversity is appreciated and is, I would say, pushed also at all steps.
Good to know that. Like in the current class at ISB, also we have close to 40% um, female representation. So yeah, so I think in all spheres of life, we are wanting to have that sort of balance maintained. Uh, so now moving on to an interview type of question, what you might have also been asked during your interview. So just going back to those times and asking you the same question, starting from you, Renuka. Why did you choose ISB over any other business school?
so the other B schools if you wanted to do an MBA back in 2010, right now, of course, the situation is slightly different. So I'll take take you back a decade. So your options were the IIMs, and there was ISB, and there wasn't really a comparison to ISB at that point in time. ISB was still a relatively newer school, but there was no the value proposition that ISB offered in terms of valuing experience. And ISB even back then took diversity very seriously, which means they did not, I mean, simply putting in women in from the same batch did not count for diversity. Diversity meant that as an engineer with 4 years of technology experience, you will get to interact with a Lady Shriram, a college graduate of economics, or a person who has worked in a shop floor, or a person who has worked in military. So this is truly, it took diversity very seriously. And there wasn't really a school that offered these this in a package back then. And now probably there are many more, but ISB, I think, is quite ahead of its times. And the other ones were very traditional. So if you were with experience, you were actually the exception, not the norm. And really for people with experience, ISB was hands down the institution to go to. So the other courses came in much later. All of the other exec courses, or the 1-year courses, even from the IIMs, came in much a little later than what ISB. So ISB had a leg up in that. So and the international faculty that it boasts of, I think that was unique, and I think word had got out about the fact that about the quality of teaching and the quality of courses. It was at par at any international B school could offer. So within India, it made perfect sense for me to choose ISB. So,
Yeah, so as I said, I had some 8-9 years of experience before ISP, and frankly, I was the sole earning member, and my wife had quit. I had a very young baby. I could not have afforded 2-year courses, and I wanted a 1-year course with all the, I would say, value propositions, good faculty, good campus support, etc. And I think ISB fit the bill completely. And I must add, as was just said, in terms of diversity, not only in terms of gender diversity, but in terms of diversity of backgrounds. So that was one big plus. And what stood out for me was a practical experience that I had with IIM Ahmedabad in terms of the practical focus. So I had got into this IIM Ahmedabad PGP course, which is there for 1 year, especially for experienced professionals. It's a full-time course, again on the same line as we have at ISB. I stayed there on campus for 1 year just to experience that course with the permission of admissions team there. I could see that the difference in terms of approach towards more focus on core study or more focus towards practical aspect of it. So when at ISB, I could notice that it was more towards practical. We had classes only on 4 days, and remaining was open for different kind of activities. So that also stood out brilliantly for me. I mean, that was very important aspect that I could consider. Plus the campus support that I was getting, both in terms of family and in terms of other arrangements. That also is that those are not the sole deciding factor, but in addition to what Renuka said, this also was one important factor, because I had got into an overseas school in Australia and in HKUST. HKUST again, I was getting, jittery about language and overall environment there. And still I was not able. It was very expensive to have stay on campus, and especially with family, a wife and a small kid. So those are also important factor for.
Yeah, Ipshita.
For me, again, as Renuka said, I think the ISB faculty stands out. Diversity is the second element that I thought was very different during that time. And I sort of understood how the school is very futuristic and not reactive, right? It had, and because it was so futuristic, it sort of prepares students very well, even aspirants like you're interacting with alums from the campus. This is something that I don't know whether other schools now have started doing it, but they hadn't done it before, at least during my time. ISB is the only school that has info sessions. It gives alums, alums access to what do you call the future aspirants. So it really invests in a student before even he or she is an ISB student, right? That's one of the good parts about the school. Then once you enter the school, of course, the faculty is unmatched. I mean, and I've been in one of the best institutions prior to ISB also, okay? And I knew what direct comparisons I could make. And not to say that JNU faculty wasn't good, they were very good in India as well, right? But ISB faculty was a notch above, right? And every course, had very good faculty, and it was the need, right? If you had to crash, if you have to sort of squeeze a 2-year MBA into a 1 year, right? You better have the best faculty out there to deliver it to you. So I think the ISB invests tremendously on faculty. So that was next, and then of course the exposures. It's not about academics always in ISB. There's a lot to learn outside those classrooms, which for me was very, very interesting. It was something that I wanted to go back to school for.
Thanks a lot, everyone. So just following up with a question on the point which you three just touched upon in terms of return on investment. So there are a lot of questions around, let's say if I do an MBA abroad and if I want to come back to India and, start something, maybe join a corporate or start something on my own, what would be that return on investment? Or if I do it from India itself, and what would be the return on investment then? So we'll just probably start with Ritesh, your views on that in terms of a return on investment, maybe not just with respect to money and time, but also in terms of learning, maybe 1 year versus 2 year or that as well.
And I would have said this first line if you answered this. This is not for 1 year actually. This is for the life. And if we say that we can recover entire investment in first year with the salary increase or second year, I don't know how true it can be. It's always through the life, and also a lot depends at what level of your career you are getting into it. Actually, if you are going into it with 10 years of experience, please don't expect that you will get 2x of your salary. You're going in with 3 years of experience, yes, you can get 2x, 3x also. So that is how your return on investment will differ. Now, not going away from the money aspect to the actual value aspect. I mean, there's lot to learn and gain, which maybe we can't value it actually in terms of money, in terms of your relationship with your batch, your connect in the industry, your learning throughout the life, your connect with the faculty and school. It's been 10 years that I have been out from the campus, but have been in touch with ISB. It always teaches new thing every other day. You have these conferences, these roundtable discussions, so you can be part of these events at ISB every now and then whenever you want. So I mean, to keeping it short, yes, if you want to make return on investment calculation only on the in terms of salary increase, yes, it does offer, but you need to see what level of your career you are, and then add whatever I just pointed out. I'm sure Ipshita and others would have a lot to add on this. Renuka, I mean, I'm sure there'll be a lot to add.
So I think
Ipshita.
I agree with you, Ritesh. Okay, I've actually thought about this question a lot post ISB than pre, because a lot of people ask me this question, return on investment. Okay, and my question to them is, how do you define return on investment? Uh, so a lot of people think about it in terms of money, and that's not the correct way to think about it. Okay, not to say that ISB doesn't give you a return on investment, and as Ritesh said that it gives you it depends on what you were doing prior to ISB. Okay, and if you were part of a job that had very high salary package, right, the job that you may land from the campus may have a a small delta or whatever. It could be like a regular lateral hire because you have a lot of experience, okay? Because they are seeing you as a lateral hire, right? They are taking you in roles because of your past experience, right? So of course that so you will match up to the industry practices, okay? However, if you are making a massive shift, okay, like I know software engineers at very low salaries who started out with a five, at least during my time, okay, a salary of say 5 lakh and then landed the first job out of ISB with at least 25 lakhs, 30 lakhs. Okay, now for those guys, the return on investment monetarily was extremely high. What people don't take into account that ISB offers is once you're part of ISB, you are part of ISB for life. You are ISBN, yes. Right? It's part of your identity. It's the access you get to an alumni base above, like which is now I think 12,000 plus, right? It's insane. It has so many people from so many companies, and we're all connected over an email, right? So if I have a question, and if I have to ask some question or get connected, right, all that I need to do is put it on that group, WhatsApp group or whatever, and I get connected, right? That sort of network is insane. And I don't think and when you, I think, grow in your careers, you will realize that it really, really matters, right? Whether it is about guidance in your current role, whether it is about mentorship, right? You want to connect with somebody who's not part of your company and you want to get some, neutral views, right? ISB is there. Then there are things that ISB continues to do, right? Look at us. We are 10, 7, 8 years after ISB. We're actually spending this evening, talking to you guys. This is where we are so connected with the school, even if so many years. And I know that for a fact that this sort of connection is not there in other B schools because I have cousins who are from IIMs and they cannot boast about the same thing as we do. So we are very closely, almost like I would like to call it like it's like a brotherhood, right? We are very close-knit, always there for each other. Even the alums are there for each other. School gives a lot of infrastructure to sort of continue your lifelong learning, which is very unlike other B schools. Today, if I want to reskill, right, I can actually go back to ISB and I can sit in one of those classes, of course, with a fee, but I can do that, right? That access is there. And there is a lot of access to, materials even outside, ISB. So if you think about ISB, return on investment is about money, right? You're actually not valuing it correctly.
Renuka.
Yeah. So I'll make a generic comment of return of investment of the place where you do your MBA and the place of your employment. Typically, I mean, if you're looking at purely from a monetary perspective, I'll come to the other aspects a little later. But if you're purely looking at it from a monetary perspective, the place where you do your MBA should be your place of employment for you to maximize monetary return of investment. This is rule of thumb. You may have exceptions to the rule, but largely if the bell curve, your 60-70% of your janta will follow this rule. So if you are planning, if you are planning an MBA abroad and you're coming back to India, please take into account the salary levels that are there across roles and across functions, and the amount that you will be spending in toto while doing an MBA abroad. If you're planning to work and settle there, that may be a good option for you to explore. If that's the environment that you want to go, you gain access to that set of people, and that's how you should look at your return of investment monetarily. From the other aspect, I will I think draw on a deeply personal aspect of my career. So I took a departure from regular corporate work, and I went ahead and did a food startup. I ran it for about 3 years, and we were a group of people. But if it had not been for ISB, I would not have even ventured around that food startup. And that has added entrepreneurship has added a dimension to my career irrespective of the field being different, which is very different. And even today, when I sit and have conversations either with my peers or superiors, that experience is of value. Now, I would never have taken that step had I not come to ISB. So ISB provides you that, it opens up opportunities for you, and you start believing in yourself that you can take these bets on yourself. I think that makes it very very unique, and I don't think I will ever be able to put a value. I mean, that return on investment for me is infinite, because my career trajectory is because of because I came to ISB and did not go to a standard B school. So that's the kind of value it offers. And like Ipshita and Ritesh said, you have a fallback mechanism in terms of the alumni network. And when I'm telling you we are connected, it is not it is not by, it's not just for the sake of saying it, because we spend a lot of time. And the moment you say that you are an ISB alumni and I'm connecting you because I need help, there are a host of people who will get lined up and who are willing to offer whatever they can, and however they will be able to help, they will do that. And especially if you are in the entrepreneurship side, you can see that at play. People are there. Did you go and meet that investor? Did you get that call? Did he treat you properly? Did you say all of these things? Did you make these points? That's the kind of guidance and mentorship that you get from within the community, and I think that's priceless. So that's how I would answer this question.
Wow, thanks a lot, everyone. That was very, very insightful. I know we are short of time now. We just have 3 to 4 minutes, so I'll quickly try to, you know, merge two questions into one, and then have the parting words. Yeah, but the three of you touched upon career trajectory, so I just wanted to put across the stats related to that. So in the last year batch, close to 78% of the students actually made an industry shift. Close to 75% made a functional shift or a role shift, and close to 66% of the students made both an industry as well as a functional shift. So that's just echoing what you all just mentioned. I just wanted to put that point across. Okay, so now moving on to our last question, starting with you, Ipshita. You know, uh, what would be your suggestion to the PGP aspirants out here on if they are looking for a career in finance, for example? What is it that they can do to prepare themselves before joining ISB? And what would be your advice to them in terms of applying to ISB as well?
Okay. Before joining ISB, I mean, it depends on which role you have been on. If you are a fresher, obviously your starting point will be ISB. But if you have few years of experience, right? I think one of the ways to sort of figure out, particularly, if you're in banking roles, right? And I know for Citi and for Axis, right, there are ways you can get into a finance role, right? So if there is something that you can do to sort of align yourself to a finance role, that would be helpful, because that's going to give you the little bit of exposure that you don't have, right? If you are completely from a non-finance background, okay? But if you are from a finance background, then of course, it's your work that you can speak for, right? In terms of what you need to do to prepare to ISP is, I think, of course, academics is good, but it's about building your overall profile, which is very, very important. And while I know, in India we are all habituated to think about grades and getting the highest marks, right? Unfortunately, right, it leaves you with very little time to do other things, right? And I'm talking about this in 10 years. If that's been your story, right, you want to spend some time in building the other side of your profile, which is non-academic, right? And it's genuine profile. It's not about going and doing a few months of, what do you call, volunteer work just to sort of make sure that you have something to write on your essays, right? It's about, because that people will obviously see through. Genuine profile building that is required to really make it to us.
Renuka.
Okay, so one, I think I think everybody on the call here has an access to a lot of resources. So do your research before. Do your research in terms of what are the just simple research. Google up the company. What is it that people are doing, and what is their LinkedIn profile saying? What are they talking about in journals? Is that something that you would like to do? And then make up your mind. So do extensive research. And we are, I think, right now living in an era. I mean, back then there were very few avenues for us to do research unless you knew people. Now you can do it in a much faster way. Simply, going through profiles of people on LinkedIn is also very, very informative as to how people's careers have moved, panned out. So try and build your own story in your head as to how you want your career to look at. I think getting that understanding itself, of course, you'll fill in with a lot more details as real life pans out. But preparing yourself is half the battle won. And when you do that, all of that will start emerging in the way you present yourself in what you are thinking, and go deep would be my advice. Do not play on the surface, because it's very easy to just play on the surface and read half an article there, or do read four tweet lines over here, especially with microblogging sites galore these days. But try and go deep and try and build depth in your thinking and in your research work. That will show up in the way you will present yourself, in the way you own the narrative of your career. And that will definitely make an impact. Rest, I think, in terms of essay writing and all of those things, I think we've covered some of those aspects in our prior discussions. So they hold true as well.
Yeah, Ritesh. Yeah, Ritesh, you are on mute.
So sorry, didn't realize. As Renuka said, do research, and evaluate yourself and do justice with yourself. I mean, if you feel your 3-4 years of experience and you have that genuine interest in a particular field, yes, you are at the right place. You can make a shift. The 10 years of experience in a non-related field, you will have to compromise a lot, even if you have to go into the finance field. Okay, you have to. I mean, a person with 5 years of relevant experience will sit ahead of you, even if you have 10 years of non-relevant experience, right? So, are you ready to make that shift as a fresher in a new field? You have to decide. It will be difficult, but you might still get a chance. But yes, lot to compromise there. So research, evaluate yourself, do that justice with you, and then decide what you actually want to do. These MBA courses will offer a lot to learn, all options to learn, all courses, all electives, everything on the campus. But you need to decide actually and do justice with that particular analysis. That is my, I would say, short suggestion on this particular question.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I know we have crossed the time. I apologize for that. I might want to take 2 more minutes because there has been a question repetitively being asked in the chat section. Any one of you can go ahead and answer it. Does ISB teach about trading in the stock market without making any loss? What course does ISB teach about trading and investing in stock market? Like
I would
something.
love to take that course today also, GB. I mean, that's a magic that if anybody can teach me. I've been in the finance field for 20 years. I can tell you, not that I got a chance to, say that I never incurred loss in the stock market. So it's magic. Anybody would want to love that, to learn that. But there are courses, as I think Ipshita was mentioning again and again, time and again, there is this iAlpha program available, project available live, where you actually deal with real stock market with real scripts and then, yeah, real money, right? So it certainly teaches a lot on that aspect. But please don't expect that It will, anybody for that matter will teach you make money without incurring loss, right? It's a loss. You're going to an MBA college, right? You're paying fee. Your opportunity cost for 1 year. Your actual money for your fees, right? That's how you're returning. You're getting this return. So, anyways, it's magic.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for answering that, because I didn't want to miss out. I didn't want to leave even the audience on a negative note, thinking that we are not answering their question. So, yeah. So I would like to take this opportunity once again to thank Renuka, Ritesh, and Ipshita for being here with us, taking out their time and sharing their life and industry experiences with all of us. I'm quite sure to the entire audience, you would have gained a lot of insights and learnings through it. And I'm quite sure you'll be implementing those learnings going forward in your life, maybe at ISB or not at ISB, but somewhere, going forward in your life and your career. So, thank you very much to the panelists for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on board. Uh, Now, to the audience, once again, thank
Thank
you to you as well for joining us. Uh, we have, a lot of events lined up for you going forward as well. Tomorrow, in fact, we have at 11:30 a.m. We have PGP faculty masterclass. Uh, you can go to the website under PGP admissions events page. You can register for all these upcoming events. You to info specifically in tomorrow's session, you can experience virtually how classroom session experience at ISB is like. We'll have a faculty member from ISB who will be taking a live classroom session for you all. uh, and going forward, every Thursdays, probably we have Instagram live sessions by current students who come and talk about their on campus experience and what's currently happening on campus. Probably on every Saturday we have the career series lined up, like how we had careers in finance. I guess the next one is careers in operations or careers in supply chain, right? And the Sunday after that probably would be an application workshop for you all, like how our panelists talked about, what do's and don'ts, or, how you can make your application stronger. We'll just probably touch upon those points as well. So you can just go to the website and register for the upcoming events. Once again, thank you all for joining us. Wish you all the best. Have a good night and take care.
all
Thank
the
you.
best to everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all
Thank
the
you.
Thank you,
best.
All the best.
Akshita.
All the best.
Thank you, Renuka. Great
Yeah.
meeting you. Thanks, Jibi.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Good night.